In this video, I would like to talk a little bit about the change of topology and how to properly also plan your model or think through it. And for example, as you see here, I have frame 1, frame 2, 3, and 4B. So on this layer, I duplicated my different versions or snapshots of my modeling process. This is very useful when you want to go back to a certain time or stage of your modeling process and restart there. So instead of, for example, working only one model and then everything doesn't look good and you have to undo it, or you can't undo enough and then you have to rebuild stuff, simply just make a snapshot of that moment, of that object, and just copy it, for example, on a different layer. So you see this one, I think this is actually 4A. So I went back actually to 4A. So 4B I put to here and then I didn't really like it, so I went back to 4A. So let's take a look at maybe how I from this got to this part. So how to build this fork. And it's basically the same like we did with the fork for the front part. So if I go into edit mode, I'm going to first create a new model. I'm going to delete those edges. I'm leaving this one just as a reference. And then I'm going to fill this one. And then I can press E, extrude it out slightly. Scale it along the x-axis. And you probably start noticing already that is my initial start to have those two side faces, because this I can now use to, for example, extrude this one out. And I have to do a little bit of rotation cleanup. And then I can press E and move it to here. Also here, a little bit of cleanup to do. And then the reason why I kept those end face here is, as you can see, I'm just use it as a reference. And in this case now I can delete it because I don't need it anymore. So this actually is a good start. Maybe it's a little bit too thick, so I could go ahead and say, well, all those scale along the x-axis and, for example, straighten together SX and 0, and then maybe move this one in just a notch. Okay. And going to open this face. And now in this case, actually, I would like to make use of my mirror modifier because I don't want to have to do everything on both sides all the time. So you see I created a center loop cut, and then I'm going to delete those edges and then add a mirror modifier, make sure it's on top so that this one is first, then comes the subsurf. Because now I could go ahead and, for example, create a loop cut and maybe crease this. So this is nice. However, what I really don't like, let's say, is how this is sharp and then this is round. I would like this edge actually to flow better into my main object. and that is not a problem. What we have to do is basically to rethink a little bit how the topology works. So the line I have highlighted here, I actually would rather like to stop there and, for example, continue flowing this way. And to do this, we have to create another loop cut. But before I do that, I have to open this geometry a little bit. So I select this edge because that one I'm going to delete and also remove. So delete edge. And you see that I cut in an open space. And I have to do the same here as well. Because then at this point, I can create another loop cut. And for example, move it to there. So then I can select this point and then this point and either go to mesh, vertices, sorry, I was at the wrong one, and merge, or you can use the mesh tools. You have merge here as well. And then at last, that basically means the points I selected first will be merged to the point I selected at the end. And I can also press W and then say inside the specials menu, merge at the last object. And then you see that this point is being moved to the last selected object or point and then being merged together. Now this point I have to delete because I don't need it anymore. And then I can fill in a face. And as you can see, if I now go into object mode, we have a really nice continuous edge flow. So this is really beautiful. But maybe I really don't want that also up here everything is so tight. So to do this there, what I have to do is maybe I start here and select. Well, I'm going to make a loop cut, a loop select, and then I'm going to deselect certain edges. Maybe those. Okay. And then I'm going to move them in a little bit. Maybe, let's say, till there. Like this. Okay, good. And then maybe here I have to, if I want to have a nice and soft transition, sculpt those points a little bit by hand. So this is a nice curve. And I can do the same down here. So, okay. And whenever you work with a mirror modifier, you don't have to keep it all the time. For example, this central line or the central loop cut here, this one, is actually straightening this edge a little bit too much. So let's say my sculpting is basically done. I could go and say apply, and then in edit mode, remove this edge or this loop cut. Then I have one loop cut, for example, less to deal with. And maybe, let's see, what happens if actually we scale those along the x-axis together? And then I say maybe remove doubles. Yeah, basically, I'm back to where I was before. Now this is soft again. Of course, that doesn't work. So I can maybe could actually select not all, but maybe, for example, only those that I am sure I don't need anymore, and say S, X, and 0. And then here say remove doubles. So I have here a triangle, and I have here a triangle. And in a previous video, I said like it's okay if you have them, specifically when maybe they're on flat surfaces. Because with the subsurface modifier, that modifier smooths those out later a little bit and turns them, when we bake the modifier, it bakes them into rectangular faces. So for example, now in this case here, you see I'm selecting the midpoints and then I'm moving them down a little bit. So I continue doing a little bit more mesh sculpting. So I get more a rounded edge down here, and maybe let's say up here, for example, I don't dislike them being there, but I scale them together. So you see, this way you can then reshape the topology, and the subsurface modifier always takes care that the end result that you put out is perfectly compatible to be converted to a NURB surface. The only thing is, like, what you really have to be careful about is, and that, for example, could still work. Let's say we take this edge out, but then maybe, let's see, going to create triangles in there. And there you can see maybe that the highlight is a little bit wicked. So it's still made out of 4 sides, but if you go into the wireframe mode, you can see that there is some weird pinching going on. And this pinching would be transferred also into the NURBS model. And you can also see that where, for example, it pinches out and dips in, the surface is uneven, while on the left side, the surface is perfect, which should illustrate to you that you can have triangles if you need to. You should avoid them, but if you do, best put them on a lineup where maybe they form a flat surface, so you don't really have any big problem later with creating then a surface. And for example, up here, let's say I'm deleting this edge, and then I select all those edges and press F. You see that actually we have a face with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. So it's a rectangular face with more than 4 points, and it's nice and soft. And if we go into the wireframe mode, and let me try to see if maybe I find a good spot, but hold on. Let me do it this way. Then you can see what I wanted to show you. Also here you see that we have everywhere 4-sided faces, also here, but for example, here, to make this work, we have a star cross. And that works again really well when you are dealing more or less somewhat with flat surfaces. So I hope this made somewhat little bit of sense. You notice that this is also similar to the way how I changed the creasing, for example, for the spokes. So you can locally insert extra edges to start creasing, Or for example, like I did here, create a loop cut and then reroute the flow of the loop cut so that you can combine sharp and soft edges simply by modeling and maintain perfectly soft transitions and don't have any, how could I say that, big issues then later with transferring that into your NURBS model.